You're listening to The Adventuring Party, talking about gaming the Irish way.
Time, space, reality. It's more than a linear path. It's a prism of endless possibility, where a single choice can branch out into infinite realities, creating alternate worlds from the one you know. I am the Watcher. I am your guide through these vast new realities. Follow me and ponder the question: what if? Welcome to the party. I'm Owen.
Still Savage. Go back to sleep
Uh,
now.
I am Warlord Scarr and Master of Questions.
And I am still Dave.
And today we are here to once again ponder: what if? Digging into the depths of the mailbag to emerge with treasure is Warlord Scarr. What you got for us?
Yes. So
This
our
is episode 800, right?
yeah,
It
well,
is
yes, but
800.
also episode 800. So
And I went back and I listened to all 800 previous episodes just to be ready for this one. We're going to do a retrospective of this podcast. Yeah? No? Did I miss a meeting?
Haven't we done that already?
Have we done that
Yeah,
many times?
but I gotta tell you, the retrospective episodes, they don't age well. If only there was an alternative history we could explore.
Oh,
One
well,
where we answered questions about alternate history.
Sorry, I wasn't around for those episodes, or I wasn't present, or I do not recall, in the best tradition of anyone who's been on the wrong side of a tribunal. Okay, maybe I didn't listen to all 800. Might have skipped one or two. Scarr, Warlord Scarr.
mhm.
The Magnus Magnusson of our merry band. The questioner. What's the first question?
Okay.
Are these questions that have been sort of posed to us by the vagaries of alternative histories, or these? Where did we source these fine thoroughbred questions?
These are fresh from the internet stud farm that is our Discord server, and
Yeah,
our
let's
loyal
rename it.
listeners. Our
Fuck
loyal
this stud
listeners
farm.
have provided a smorgasbord, I believe is the terminology, of different questions for us to ponder.
That's
Are we
right,
now-
noble listener, and those not listening from the future. And no longer is feedback to your podcast generated by ChatGPT. In this past, we actually had living humans sent in information.
Wait, if it's a smorgasbord and they're thoroughbreds, are we eating a lot of horse flesh this episode?
I eat a lot of horseradish anyway.
Attendant risks. Life on campaign, eh? Okay, that's enough. I had no idea what was coming after the credits on this episode, folks. The bear has heard things. What's first, and who is posing? Question.
Okay.
As opposed to who's posing.
The first one comes from our great thinker of our time and mathematician of the ages, Zowseed of the Seed of Worlds blog, who we come to and has been on the podcast many a time.
Not
But
lately.
Hmm?
I must ask what's
Slightly.
going on there. I think he's trying to angle for the Alexandrians audience. He's used us as a stepping stone. It's clear to me now.
Jeez, if he's using us as a stepping stone, oof.
He's up to his ankles. Well, we'll pick a beef with him later. Go on. What does he want to know now?
okay, so his big question is: what if there was no WotC on the main timeline, and thus D&D faded out into a tiny nub of a company like the revived one of the? Are we on the third revived TSR at this point? I think we're on 3 or 4.
How many kids did Gygax have?
A lot,
Whose turn is
actually.
it? Whose turn is it?
How many syllables are there in early Sinlu? Anyway,
So you're talking by 2000, TSR are basically dead as a concern, ravaged by the fallout of Dragon Dice and overly generous return policy.
We
Yeah.
made too many dice.
Yeah, basically, more or less, and that allowed people to return them for a full refund on a CCG
Oh.
craze. Now, the funny thing is, they probably wouldn't have made Dragon Dice without WotC, because WotC are innately tied up in TSR's destruction.
But of course,
playing both angles.
You see, here's the problem. So it would have to be the D&D Cyclopedia returns sank TSR, which is possible.
Did they?
But
I don't know. I've never heard anything about people sending back the rules cyclopedia en masse. I heard nothing but nostalgic glory for the rules cyclopedia. It's the perfect edition of D&D
it was
without all that advanced nonsense.
it was something got sent back and blew them out.
Yeah.
this is like their
So
equivalent
I
to
think
the
was it the
Atari
Cyclopedia?
ET
I thought that was the
landfill.
one that was the SpaghettiOs.
I hadn't heard
Jack
that
of many
one, but
things. Anybody?
but a lot of things did come. Yeah, like so. Like as I said, in the mid-90s, WotC discovered that you could put a game on on a bunch of cards and had a
So-
skewing effect on many parts of the industry.
So Richard Garfield and Peter Adkinson both get taken out by a time traveling RPG player, right?
I guess.
You mean the late 90s isn't full of talk of CCGs are going to be the end of RPGs?
Yeah. So you don't have that. So if WotC is Gonzo, right? What happens? There's a bunch of knock-ons as a result of that. Okay. So WotC is not there. So there's no CCG craze
Mm-hmm.
for a start. So we have to have questions about, does Pokemon happen the way it does? I don't know. Let's push that one aside. So we're going to talk about who takes over as the king of RPGs. Right. Well, in the 90s, if D&D didn't exist, and even if D&D did exist, the king of the RPGs was not D&D. The
White Wolf,
90s
maybe?
were... Yeah, it's White Wolf. It's absolutely White Wolf.
They
And
kind
it's...
of ate themselves in the end, and I
Well,
think they would have managed to do
absolutely
that. They
Yeah.
would have managed to do that with or without WotC in the picture.
Oh, 100%. These guys couldn't design their way out of a paper bag. They couldn't balance two bricks on top of each other. You know?
Oh, yeah. Look, I can't really argue with that. Like, I mean,
They put out Mage the Ascension, right? This is the epitome of White Wolf's style over substance. They put a white paper, gold cursive ink. They wrote the entire book like that. Have you ever tried to read gold cursive on white paper?
Under moonlight, sure.
it's
You know, like
it's-
you
it's
start
not-
looking for that
it's not
pistol
fun.
pretty fast.
Mhm.
You know, that
Trying to drink beer here. God damn it, it's coming from my nose.
these people were not suited to being the top guys. But the top guys they would be nonetheless. So you're looking at a whole era of terribly designed RPGs being popped out. That's fine. And so that would continue on for a while. So you have to have the counter-revolutionary. Now at the time, the Forge was hanging around in RPG design, and they were getting into their like gaming or the gamist versus simulationist versus narrativist stuff. And
Yeah,
on.
but would there be enough weight behind it without a D&D to swing at?
Well,
Because
you see, I think they would end up swinging at the terrible rules balance and story focus of the thing, and there would probably be some kind of fantasy retro clone. Now, if you're going to latch on to one of those and you didn't want to do D&D, I think the next one up that might come in with the whiff of exoticism off it would be Warhammer Fantasy or the Dark Eye. So I think there might be a European import of the more grim and gritty fantasy adventures.
Dave,
And
anyone you think might be contender to the crown? That's Hida's laid out some pretty convincing possibilities. Anything that comes to you?
Surely Chaosicum could. I can't. Chaosium. I can never pronounce it well. Should
Cthulhu
be
Boys.
a contender. I mean, like Call of Cthulhu certainly has name
Yeah.
brand recognition.
100%. And it was coming off years of Kraken campaigns. They were in a good
Yeah,
position
Red
in
Mask.
the mid 90s. They had a strong lineup of their regular supplements roll out. They were cranking them out. They weren't at it wasn't a time where they had a huge bunch of new ideas. But if D&D is out in the marketplace, I mean, those I think, and White Wolf is coming off as a bit foofy. I think the percentiles could come into role, like Warhammer Fantasy, Call of Cthulhu, both heavy percentile systems. You
Mhm.
could be looking at a future where the OSR is all doing percentage stuff
Mhm.
at this time. So, the old school revival is all percentile systems.
Potentially, yeah. But I feel like the thrust of the uh like we assume if the question says that D&D fades out, it doesn't like get bought essentially. Like
Yeah.
no one ponies up to buy it because there aren't enough candidates, and those would have probably been board game companies or something. And like who would like if there's no WotC, striking it big. Who are the money people in gaming? Like I
White
If
Wolf.
there's
Oh,
anyone,
well,
well,
I think there's a little bit of cart before the horse there. If we say White Wolf, I think White Wolf kind of need a a lot of people coming off D&D for it to get well. They need D&D to have gotten as big as it did with WotC. But if we've got no WotC, I honestly I won't talk about any particular game, although I've got one contender, one champion. You'll never see it coming. Uh, but I will talk about what I think the trends might have been. If WotC brought anything to the table, it was production value. Like seeing the 3.5 books in full color, like hardcover full color back to front, was like that stuff stood head and shoulders above anything anyone else would do for quite a while.
Mhm.
Because World of Darkness still mostly confined itself to black and white. FASA more they tip in color pages, but same.
Yeah, and
Um,
as we said, like TSR themselves, I think they would splash out for big covers and there'd be
yeah,
a lot of internal art. But unless it was like the
but it's
monstrous compendium add-on pages,
black
uh,
and white on toilet paper.
I
So
think maybe Planescape was the only one where they really splashed for color, and that was because they
yeah,
had the two or three art.
I can't really think of
but
anything else.
without a company like WotC to take, who of course, obviously, as it was alluded to, had a lot of CCG money to throw at this, it wouldn't have driven the industry in quite the sort of polished sort of way it went for a long time. I don't think, funnily enough, we live in the best of both worlds now. You can pick up zine RPGs and you can pick up, gold foil on black paper if you efforts if you like,
Mhm.
degenesis kind of efforts, real coffee table art book stuff. But you needed a big company like WotC to kind of get the industry there in the first place, and a lot of other people were able to kind of ride that afterwards. As for my pick, look, percentiles, yeah, I think Owen's onto something there. You need some name recognition, you need experienced people who've already made their mark. If there was a game I'd pick to take up the mantle and sort of replace in the hearts and minds of gamers that which WotC and D&D were not going to provide, then Gary Gygax's Cyborg Commando,
I
with the
don't.
famed multiplication system.
No. That was he'd already abandoned Cyborg Commando by that time. He had just put out in 1999. He just put out Legendary Adventures with the J instead of a G.
I think he'd pivot back to Cyber Commando, finally recognizing the audience would finally recognize the genius of that game.
Okay.
Like, the thing is, if
Got a
everything
great
was
cover.
abandoned and everyone's lying around dead, would Gary Gygax not sleaze back into view
Oh yeah,
with a new D&D? Like, the table is clear. He can put out whatever he wants.
I do think.
CNC cyborgs and commandos, man. CXC because you got to multiply.
Yeah.
If you don't know what Cyber Commando is, folks, oh you sweet children of summer,
Do
never
you want to
ever
see
play
what
it.
my okay,
Go
I
on.
have 2 points I want to make in terms of people. Like we said Chaosium, is a big one, and I would right to agree. They had Call of Cthulhu. They also had Seventh Sea, which had just come out and was about to get a big award that year. So I think if they had the full weight of Seventh Sea behind them, they could have made a play. It would mean that
7C doesn't exist without the CCG. Because no CCGs means Alpha 4 doesn't exist. Means 7C doesn't exist.
The story ideas are there. I mean, I was going to say L5R, now that you mention it, and I did think, oh, well, I added the CCG first. But I mean, CCGs don't exist in this timeline, so the story ideas, have to come out somewhere, and it might as well be another RPG. And like, Legend of Five Rings would scratch, it is basically sword and sandals, except the sandals are made of bamboo. It has you've got in Eastern mythology, which World of Darkness is also sort of popularizing at this time. You've got a big bestiary of things to fight, so it's Onis rather than ogres. And yeah, the class variety is maybe not quite there, but yeah, you can pretty much fit almost every class in D&D to something you'd find in L5R, probably by design. I could see it as a strong contender, in almost a better fit for the kind of the D&D shaped hole in the culture that a lack of D&D and WotC would leave. But yeah, you've got to you have to maneuver past the fact there's no CCG to kind of popularize it first. But anything with a sword and adventure, even if it is slightly maritime or oriental or whatever, would probably have succeeded. But you do need WotC and the insane production values they were bringing to kind of get us to where we are today.
There was I was going to start suggesting some options like Last Unicorn Games, but then I realized that they made their bank on like the CCG craze as well. They made the Dune CCG, which lasted for a minute, but everyone who played it loved and heartfeltly remembers. And also Heresy, which I've never played, never seen, but I know is one of the infamous early CCGs.
Yep.
There
was a legendary adventure CCG.
It was the style of the time.
Yeah.
Everyone took a shot at it.
Yeah. But yeah, without CCG money, they probably do not get the Star Trek license that made them buyable by WotC. So yeah, that's probably not going to be a thing. So do you want to hear my cracked idea?
Yeah, shoot.
Go on.
Our Talosorian games.
Oh.
Talosorian. Because this was the middle of the anime boom as well as the CCG boom. And they were riding high on the Dragon Ball Z RPG and what was the thing? The
Bubblegum Crisis?
A Bubblegum Crisis game. They had a thing where they were using they would license an anime and they would make the rules to anime, and then they would pretend that it worked both in Cyberpunk and in the Tristat system, or what they had something called Fusion and something called the Cyberpunk system where it was
interlock.
they had interlock and they had Fusion, and they kept trying to convince people that despite one being a straight D10 system and one being a 2D6 system or 3D6 system or something like that you could totally use the same stat blocks in both. It was madness, but they were made they were simultaneously a game company, but also like this weird anime marketing company. So I don't know. That's I would say it's probably an outlier pick, but they were making this was their highest moment. If they were ever going to make a breakthrough and get to the top, it would be by I don't know what was the night they would find some way to get a fancy license or try to make Dragon Ball Z even bigger. I'm not exactly sure.
Get the Lord of the Rings license, yeah. Tolkien estate.
No, go wild, Scar. Toss out their Bubblegum Crisis is the biggest RPG. Really swing for the fences,
Actually, that's a good point, wasn't it? There was a 90s Alpha Lord of the Rings game. I think it was Decipher.
Decipher a CCG company, but there was they're all dead because the CCG created so many companies. MERP was the Middle-earth
Merc was more
role-playing.
early 90s, and then there
It
was
was, but it was revitalized, I think, by money from the CCG, as I recall.
that sounds plausible. Yeah, like
Ice. It was Iron Crown Enterprises.
yeah, I see where the original ones with Merp, and then this they folded in the mid 90s, and then Decipher picks it up after they get CCG money, and I think that's like 2002 or something. Yeah, sorry.
This reveals something interesting. This question reveals something interesting about the current state of the industry and where it came from. Is that a large number of the RPGs that form the kind of the backbone of what would be regarded as the classical body of work, the big boys. You can't get them without that pump priming CCG money. Like, we don't get the modern RPG industry without the CCG money. They're all vanity projects for companies that have discovered the infinite money glitch that is putting little pictures on cards and randomizing them. And that's kind of, man, that's a lot to get. Once you start to look at the current CCG or current RPG industry through that lens, it's like, well, that's how we got here.
Yeah,
Something
well,
just
an
thinking about.
industry with much less money in it. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, there's probably going to be fewer products made.
When's
Like,
the Flesh and Blood RPG coming?
Soon, I'll play it. Sounds good.
Look, it's all about diversifying your bonds.
Well,
let's not do gaming finance. It's too early. So, what's the next question? That's a pretty good question, though. Thank you, whoever sent that Zowseed.
Yes.
Even we knew him before he managed to dethrone the Alexandrian. Just bear that in mind, folks.
Yeah.
Give him his start. A grateful cur. How you doing, Zowseed? How you listening?
So that sort of answers one of the questions that our next person, Mr. Target, also answered. He also sort of did the basic thing of what if Magic the Gathering Mask wasn't a success. And we've sort of discussed the knock-on effects of that through the late 90s and into the 2000s, formative years. But he also asked a similar but much differently, a different set of dominoes. What if Settlers of Catan wasn't a success? Now, yeah. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Settlers of Catan was 92, something like that.
Sounds about right.
92, 94. Hold on.
Editor will chop out us furiously tapping on the keys. We look it up. Oh yeah, I recall. Yes, I was at
1995. Okay. And
the
when did
spiel
it
that
spiel
year. I did have a word with the judges, and I said, "Well, it's no pick up penguins, but it's a plucky little game. It has a shot." And what do you know? There we go. I was nowhere near Germany that year. No one can prove I was. So 95, yeah.
Yeah, 1995, and it won 3 different German game awards.
Palmdor, Best Beer, and der Spiegelgamen.
The Spiel des Jahres, the Deutscher Spielpreis, and the SN Feather.
Yeah, I was close.
So what you're suggesting is, right, that Settlers of Catan, the publisher in 1996 was Mayfair Games, and that company shut down for financial reasons in 1997, but got bailed out by ICE, Iron Crown Enterprises, who bought their assets and restarted their operations.
Iron Crown. Didn't they do MERP?
They did. Yeah. We were just talking about them. Yeah. So if they don't bail them out, Settlers dies.
No Catan. Okay.
No Catan over here.
I'm sorry. Now I need to know this story. How do you make Settlers of Catan and then 2 years later go belly up?
Because critical success isn't necessarily the timeline. Like, it takes a long time for this won a German award to every toy shop in the country carries it. There was a bridge there that needed to be bridged. Damn. And it was Iron Crown who did it. They must. What do you think they bought them for, Hida? It wasn't for Settlers, was it?
Well, they basically they bailed out. Pardon, they bailed them out, purchased most of their assets. They restarted operations as Iron Wing Incorporated, which operates publicly under the Mayfair Games trademark.
Mm.
And why they did it was probably because, hey, these guys make a lot of good games, and we have money from CCGing, so let's buy them out.
And it just so happens that they had an absolute stone cold killer.
Yeah,
just hatched.
And it's so what you're talking about here is Settlers fails, okay, and the issues of that one, I think everything still keeps going in the Eurogame market in Germany.
Mhm.
I think Germany keeps evolving.
Yeah, but it doesn't bust out.
Settlers isn't the same transformational game, I don't really think, in Germany. Because they were doing a lot of games like that. If you look at the Spiel des Jahres, there's no before and after Settlers era, is there? Settlers comes along, it wins, it's a big deal. But there's a lot of other games kind of happening, and so long as it even if it didn't exist, I think a lot of the same stuff would eventually have happened.
I mean, the entire Eurogame genre, you could make an argument that's largely the German game market.
Yeah,
a lot of it
Settlers was the kind of the breakout hit, though, that sort
but
of got
it's
German
breakout
games
hits
on the map
in the US. So
Yeah.
you don't get that happening.
And
Okay.
people then don't look to Germany for, well, what's the
No.
next Settlers? What's the next? It's German sort of board game scene stays a bit like the Japanese RPG scene. It's like
it's
their
its
thing.
own little cottage industry.
Yeah,
and they
I agree.
have Spiel Essen, and it's no one cares because a bunch of weird German games. Who plays them? They're always arguing about.
So
wheat.
Euros probably don't go as wide, don't become Euros.
No.
They stay German, and we get advanced Mousetrap.
Well, you just
Second
keep
edition.
more Ameritrash games, so
Yeah,
you
a
get
lot of
even
them.
harder codification. Nowadays, most no one does the classic Ameritrash games roll 20 dice, see how many dice you roll. No one's doing that anymore. And if any of your dice roll 6, they explode. Pick them all up, roll them all again. It's not. They're not doing that. So you keep board games as kind of weird, misunderstood morality plays, and just piles of theme over wafer thin mechanics.
You get one misunderstood morality play, and all of a sudden, it's all your industry wants to talk about.
Yeah.
I also suspect they stay as I think there's more space then for quite kinetic board games in the vein of Mousetrap and Ghost, was it Haunted House or Ghost House or something, and Ameritrashy stuff as well. And that's not entirely bad. If anyone's ever sat down and played Fireball Island, that's good fun. That's marbles rolling down a big plastic island and knocking over little plastic people, and you're grabbing gems and you're stealing each other's coins. It's a very dumb game, but it's very entertaining as a kinetic toy to play with. That sort of slash board game.
I
but
just don't
yeah,
think
the
there's
Euros don't take off to the same extent.
Yeah, but there's okay, who was the big Ameritrash makers back then, other than the
Bradley Mattel?
Yeah, we're talking about toy companies that who some of their toys are cardboard, but I don't think there's we might call American classics, because I think the big 80s board game and war game people for America, though, that would have been Avalon Hill.
Yeah.
Right. But Avalon Hill were already dying in 1995. I think that was the year that they first tried putting themselves up for sale and failed. So
Yeah, fair point.
What is the answer? What if no Settlers of Catan? I think the real losers here are Eurogames in general.
Mm-hmm.
The more sort of cognitive and
because as I was coming into gaming in the early
GMT.
90s, in the late 90s, I was already just off the back of Catan. few years later, people were already saying, "Oh, you need to get this German game, and here's a photocopy of the rules in English." It's amazing. That was already a meme by 1998, off the back of Settlers. Like
GMT would still be going.
Yeah, the historical sort
The
of
coin series, because they were
grognardy
still,
stuff.
but also
Was
Commanders and Colors.
mhm.
So it's war games. There's a line of
War
war
game
game,
slash,
yeah,
which
are
is
still
kind of
going
the
grand.
American equivalent of the German euro.
Yeah.
So I think the interesting thing about Settlers is it comes from Germany, but it's quite a light game. Like it is, if it wasn't for the wooden pieces, it could be almost regarded as slightly Ameritrashy, because it's about as complicated as Ludo with some decisions. Sorry, that's not fair, but it's in terms of Euro games, it's very light, but it sort of exposes the American audience who are kind of knocking around playing GMT stuff, and you are a simulationist. You're kind of a history buff if you're playing these war game slash board games, and instead now or you're stuck with things like Candyland and the Game of Life, which are like just shoot me now. They're
Nothing in
snakes and
between.
ladders with extra steps.
You know what probably
You
is the
don't get ticket
breakout game
development.
then?
Go on.
Memoir 44. That's
Yeah,
published
actually,
by
yeah.
Days of Wonder, right? In Europe. But that comes out, that would make the hop.
That came out in
2004.
the 60th
So that makes the
anniversary.
hop a few years after Settlers of Catan. There's a fallow period where nothing interesting
Yes.
happens for 5 or 6 years while games are still evolving in Europe. Then 44 makes the hop. Richard Borg can sell it over here, that's no problem. Basically comes along, basically in Connecticut, sells his ideas. Basically, he had Liar's Dice, which won the Spiel of the Arts in '93, which is well before, right?
Good game.
And then basically he puts out Battle Cry in 2000, which was
after 44, he just starts reskinning that mechanic
exactly
with anybody who'll take it off him. And more power to him. Richard Borg's a lovely guy, a very smart game designer, but he definitely found his tubular
Absolutely.
bells and has been rowing that hoe ever since. Hoeing that row? He's been in that groove ever
plucking
since.
that chicken.
What?
Plucking that chicken. Keep plucking that chicken.
I'm glad you said plucking. But I think that's a good point. It's the next game to emerge that has that kind of cross-Atlantic appeal. That Settlers demonstrates to the American audience and to a large part to the rest of Europe that this sort of stuff is out there and can be done, and inspires a lot of people to make similar games. Borg is definitely, Memoir 44 is almost as impactful. And in terms of engagement, in terms of complexity of the game, it's miles above. It only suffers perhaps from its scenario-based play.
Yeah, but it's a way more accessible war game
Mm.
than any of the other ones that are being produced. Like you've got the coin games, which would evolve as well, but they're never going to be as kind of like mass appeal as something like Memoir, which is at its heart a very accessible game with
it's got
a
the
ton of dice
elements,
rolling.
it's
So
got you've got lots of Ameritrashy kind of elements, and then the strategic kind of, if I play my card here, I can't play it there. It's a pretty good meld. It's a bratwurst in a hot dog bun.
Okay, I could see it. Yeah, that being influential seems to make some sort of sense.
It's a good question. Thank you very much, Mr. Target. Right, what's next?
I mean, we've touched on a lot of the other
Ask
questions.
James's question. I want to ask James's question. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So we have we've sort of answered one of friend of the show Conor Kinch's games of what would modern war games look like if we were back to Fireball Island, and what was that castle one that you had to shoot out?
Catapults and castle catapults. Or
crossbows,
crusades?
crossbows and catapults.
Crossbows and catapults. I've got
Yeah.
the new edition of that coming to me.
Great
actually.
game.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we can see.
I like
I feel
kinetic
like
games. They're
I
clever.
feel like Kickstarter has sort of answered Conrad's question for him. Well, yes.
Sorry, a total aside, Scar, but I always thought someone should have gotten the Aliens license and basically done a package over a skin on the Haunted House game, the Ghost Castle game, where you have the xenomorph. You drop the xenomorph into the tower, and it pops out of a vent and kills Hicks or Ripley, or never mind. It's a dumb idea. Okay, moving on.
All right. So, do you really want to?
James's question.
Okay.
Hello, James, long-time listener, and
Yeah.
James
Fellow
has his own.
podcast.
Is it the what's the? I'm thinking of someone else. Is his
Oh.
the coffee cast? Damn. Hold on. Let me check the stuff from our friends. Stuff from our friends channel, folks. You can find on our Discord. Oh no, I'm thinking of Jason. Jason, who produces Nerds RPG Variety Cast. I don't know if we've got a question for him. What's James do? Is James just around? I'm sorry, I've
He's asking questions, which is the relevant part here.
There you go. Thank you, James. Yes. Okay, I promise I'll sit on my tongue for this next bit.
All right. Oh, are you? Well, we definitely have to answer the question now. So, gentlemen, in your most non-giggly of terms, can you tell me what happens? What if cock failed in Japan?
Sorry, I didn't quite hear
Prepare
that.
to bleep, gentlemen.
It's an abbreviation, surely.
Yes. What if the Call of Cthulhu had failed in Japan?
Oh, we're children.
That joke's been around since Inquest magazine.
I know. Failed in Japan? Why? Was it big in Japan?
Call of Cthulhu is considered to be as big as, if not bigger than, D&D in Japan, and or at least that's the vibe people are getting, is that it has gone from strength to strength in Japan and has been. I mean, D&D is still being very influential, although it's D&D's influence in Japan is often considered to be moderated by the going through the cycle of inspiring computer RPGs, which then inspire homebrew games in
Fantasy
Japan.
Stars and your Final Fantasies and your
Yeah. So often people will say that. I mean, there are direct ties to D&D, like Sword World but anyway, the point is that it's not the as like massive a chunk of the space as it is in Western countries. Call of Cthulhu found its niche early, translated and got material to Japan early, and it hit in about the time of the 90s horror boom in Japan. So it was right there to inspire many a thing. In fact, you could probably blame it for a lot of Lovecraftian influences all throughout the 90s and 2000s Japanese pop culture.
Yep, cock massive in Japan.
But what if it had failed in Japan? Now, Owen, you said that you had a theory.
Yeah, let's say it go bye-bye. It shrivels up and just goes away. You're left with kind of a void. And I think, you know what I would bet? Weirdly, I think what would take over is a text adaptation of Wizardry.
Oh.
I'm talking the Wizardry, Proving Grounds, the Mad Overlord series of role-playing video games.
So,
in which you have 5 races: humans, elves, dwarves, gnomes, and hobbits. 3 alignments: good, neutral, evil. 4 basic classes: the fighter, the priest, the mage, and the thief. And then 4 elite classes with stat requirements: the bishop, the samurai, the lord, and the ninja. Bishops are priest and mage spells. Samurai are fighter with mage spells. Lord is fighter with priest spells, and ninja is fighter with thief abilities.
Ooh.
And good and evil characters cannot be assigned to the same party. You might go, hey, Owen, that's a pretty niche little video game. It's extremely influential in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
There's a
Yeah.
ton of stuff
it
that
describes a lot of
deliberately comes from its dungeon crawly roots. And if has anyone ever read or watched any of Dungeon Meshi, a modern manga? And
Is that the one where they eat stuff?
that's the one with 8 stuff.
In the
That's
anime.
great.
Yeah,
Ah,
It's good crack.
all the classes and that and the races all seem to be based on wizardry.
yeah.
Mm.
And what you described there, like you see that in sort of MMO professions, that kind of mix and match, the sort of layering over to get to the higher kind of, what would you call it, the more complicated builds, the very very Eastern kind of RPG JRPG thing, especially in MMOs as well.
Mhm.
Okay, but hold on, like if Call of Cthulhu fails, why isn't it just D&D that makes it rather than this adaptation?
Because I think D&D didn't get the same hooks in, and this would have been around the 1980s. So Call of
Right.
Cthulhu, like D&D didn't come to wasn't dominating, and Call of Cthulhu took over. Call of Cthulhu came over first. This was
Yes.
already there, and they would have gone,
Okay.
"Hey, let's do it this way,"
Got the
and they
name
would have
right, Coach.
spun their own stuff out of it. And then
Yeah.
when D&D tries to come in, they're competing against wizardry.
And wizardry's a Japanese native kind of thing.
Yeah, no, it's not, but it's like
No.
they will have thought about it as a native, because look how
Gotcha.
much they internalize it into all their systems. It's that or
Yes.
Dragon Quest or something becomes the basis of their RPGs.
I
Yeah.
could definitely see
Lotus
they would
War?
probably have had more licensed RPGs. Well, that depends on how big, because the 90s Japanese role playing was very hobbyist, very grassroots. Like they would run conventions all the time. Like people, there would be places where you get monthly or even weekly conventions because they wanted that sort of social outlet. But I don't think there was much in the way of like homegrown publishing for a long time. So
What is it that Call of Cthulhu is tapping into in the Japanese sphere that gives it its dominance?
It's
Because
set in an exotic foreign
Uh-huh.
locale. It is. It's like
Yeah, that's fair.
it's set
It's
in
set
an
in
exotic place with different codes and
New
different
England.
morals.
Yeah.
It's weird. They've got an alien way of doing a bunch of stuff. The language is different. It has the whiff of wisdom of what they're doing. Old men puttering around in books. Who knows what strange knowledge they have? It's like
Huh.
wisdom looks great from far away.
There's an old Terry Pratchett joke about that, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're right. I might as well
I'm
ask,
repurposing it. You know,
yeah, why was L5R so popular over here? Oh, I don't know. It's kind of, you got to go half around the world to find what you're looking for.
look how
Interesting.
Japanese people romanticize Paris.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good point. And I suspect also, given the period that the Call of Cthulhu is set in, like the Japanese cinema certainly
Yeah,
has a lot of noir. It's like there's a lot of fascination with because they're heavily urban society at this point. They kind of glom onto noir. It glamorizes urban living. It glamorizes that kind of late night seedy bars, detectives. And Call of Cthulhu has that kind of some of those noir trappings. But I'm thinking like, okay, if it's not going to be D&D, we've established that, and say the wizardry stuff doesn't quite scratch the same fedora tipping itch, then would Cyberpunk or hell, maybe even Shadowrun be a good substitute for the things that Call of Cthulhu is doing that the
this
Japanese like?
Yeah, this was the time of Shiro Masamune being the big cheese of manga creation, and he was big into cyberpunk. He did a lot of stuff. Like the man was very prolific up until like the Kobe earthquake just ruined ruined his career, and now he just makes porn. Um,
Well,
Damn.
earthquakes will do something to a man.
yeah,
Earthquakes, huh? There you go.
Yeah,
Like,
but yeah, no, but back in like the early 90s, which is about the time we're talking about here. Yeah, his like Cyberpunk was a big thing in the magazine, and it would, he was developing Ghost in the Shell, Appleseed, and he was inspiring a whole bunch of, the backwash from the 80s, like Punk Noir, and of course Blade Runner and its various knockoffs was starting to hit Japan around the same time, and you would get an awful lot of like references to cyberpunk stuff. Anything like, as I say, Blade Runner and the like would show up as inspiring material. So yeah, I think once again a callback. If our Talsorian games managed to pick up the opportunity and get, because we've seen them translating stuff or sub licensing stuff from Japan, but if they manage to send, like, they own Cyberpunk. When did our Talsorian? Did they always own Cyberpunk at that point?
Yeah,
Or did
they were.
they were the original?
Yeah,
I maybe
I
I've just heard. I'm thinking of
can't think
Cyberpunk.
anyone
Nothing
else.
else springs to mind.
Yeah. So
No,
okay,
because
but if they
Pontiff
manage to
made
get it
Cyberpunk
over
and
there, I think they might have a shot. I think they managed to get Cyberpunk's hooks in. That would have been the time. Um. So yeah, I'd say they would be
So
pretty.
yeah. So what if COC failed in Japan? Well, I don't know. Maybe it's time for CXC. That's right, Cyborg Commando, baby. The Japanese would have loved it with its
Oh,
multiplication and its cyborgs and commandos.
please stop trying to
That's
make that thing.
it's CXC. That's the year of CXC is coming. Right. Okay. No. Good question, James. Thank you very much. I hope we've managed to at least scratch the surface of a credible answer to that. Okay. Do we have time for one more?
We've been going. It's hard to tell because we spent like 10 minutes recording our absolute drivel.
That's all right. The rest of it's been pure
One more.
gold.
there's tons of good.
Is
good
there anything we'd
content
like
in
to
here.
pose
I
ourselves?
mean,
Yeah, we're coming up in the hour mark. It's 800. It's the 800th. So, if how do I pose this? Okay, let me lay one out for you as a what if. What if Critical Role et al. Simply hadn't worked? What if people had just not gone with it? Would we be sitting here today? What would we be? What would fill that space, if anything? Is this a good question? I don't know. Might cut this.
well, here's the thing: like, podcasts were big before Critical Role. So I wouldn't say have they really dropped off that much?
Penny Arcade started the actual play, or certainly popularized the actual play format, where they were playing D&D in front of an audience.
If
They
I
did it first.
wasn't the something awful boards like the
Well,
early breeding ground of those?
they have, but the first people who were doing it really for a big audience were Penny Arcade.
Yeah, fair enough. You can't
You
really
know?
call something awful for anyone really.
Orson Welles' War of the Worlds. Who I learned from the taxi driver, got his start in the Ambassador Theatre as a backstage fella at the age of 16. He was in Ireland, and and he needed money or something to eat, and he went down to the
Scammed his way
Ambassador
in
or
there,
the
as I
Gate. No,
recall.
sorry, the Gate, which is the same building. And no, they were like, here, you're 16, you know nothing. Here, have a job. It was a different time.
Yeah.
Didn't he come in and claim to be a famous actor?
I don't think he'd quite hit upon that shtick just at that point. Later on, he could claim that, but then again, later on, he was Orson Welles. Okay, no, let's scrap that. What if RPG magazines had managed to survive the forest fire that was the death of the magazine rack in the early 2000s
I
or
mean,
2010s?
Dragon and Dungeon would still be on the go if WotC hadn't pulled the plug, because Pathfinder has gone along just fine, producing basically the same content.
Fair.
Inquest, that's gone the way of the dodo as well, isn't it? Because you
Yeah.
need the
That's
CCG,
right.
you need the CCG money for that one.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. No, they say themselves it like Magic. It wouldn't exist without Magic the Gathering.
Yeah,
know.
Inquest was like 50% interesting. Well, it was no Arcane magazine, but it did have like 50% interesting stuff, and then 50% of it was the listings of all the Magic the Gathering and Yu-Gi-Oh cards that were out of the time.
Yeah.
The problem is if they were still going today, each issue would be the size of like one of those phone book
And
directories.
they might have had to cut that part. Yeah, they might have had to sort of yellow pages that stuff.
Tabletop Gaming Magazine suddenly went way down in size this month, which I saw as a slightly troubling sign.
That's I suppose I think the reality is it might have held the tide off for a while, but eventually, yes, the decline of print in general is now. I think boutique print, like Pathfinder, has gone from strength to strength. But yeah, it's no, it's very hard to pose a good what if question. Well done, audience. You posed very good ones.
Yeah.
So how do we want to wrap this up?
Well,
800 episodes, baby. What if we're around for another 800?
what if?
happened?
Not us, obviously. We dead.
Like pass it on to some other.
We're gonna keep
oh.
handing this one down. I won't let anyone else win. No one else gets to be the longest running traditional gaming podcast.
Are we? Are we really? Can we
I'm
verify
pretty
that?
sure we are.
I think we
Like
are.
we've like in the last 13 years we've missed what 2 weeks, 3.
That was one of those was a lunar event. Doesn't count. How can you have
Mars
weeks
was
of
in
the moon?
retrograde.
Yeah. Okay. Contiguous 800 episodes. No breaks. Don't check. I've already listened to them all for you. I can confirm. Yeah, it's 800. Now, like, none of us were here at the start. Were any of us here at the start? Looking at you, Owen.
That's me all over.
There you go. And some of us might be here for a little while longer. Who knows? Who knows? But we hope you've enjoyed this 800th episode. If you haven't, drop by our Discord, link in the show notes. Let us know what we got wrong about all of our answers. Pose some more questions, because listeners' questions is really easy content. I don't have to have a right answer, an answer. But no, this is, yes, the adventuring party. It isn't ours to begin with, and it won't be ours afterwards. We'll simply take care of it as best we can and pass it on. And at least this one wasn't a retrospective. Okay, who wants to take us out?
I'll be happy to.
Please do.
Lovely.
come
Steak
join
dinner?
us. Horse steak dinner. But if you'd like to watch us puke up our guts on our Discord server, I'll join our Discord server. But for now, keep the questions coming. Keep being curious. Keep considering the infinite possibilities. And until then, this party's over.
Thank you for listening to the Adventuring Party. Join us on our Discord server, where we keep the party going after hours. Otherwise, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, or Twitter, or you can email the hosts at party@theadventuringparty.net. The Adventuring Party is released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike version 3 license, but you probably knew that already. We hope you enjoyed the episode, and look forward to seeing you back here next week. Goodbye. Puke up our guts.
Doodle-doo, 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 doodle-doo.
All right, there we go. We have satisfied our contractual obligations just in the nick of time. When does this one is this one mine? Do I have to edit this?
Yeah, this is yours for next week.
The big honking chunk in the middle you gotta chop out, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, that seems to happen every so often. I'll be fine. Seamless. You'll never
The
notice.
big chunk at the start that you have to move
Um,
around.
we'll see.
Don't
Wait,
inflict that on our audience.
which? Well, we missed most of it.
Yeah,
We
caught
missed a lot
some.
of the gold.
It was good. You're right though. Policy now is once everyone's in the hell, it doesn't matter if everyone's in the room. Once 3 of us are gathered, start the bear. Because the bear will always pick up and sync, no matter when people join.
Mm.
That is the beauty. That's why we have the bear. He's kind of good like that, aren't you, bear? I hope he never answers.
If
That'd
he
be
answers,
scary.
we're screwed.
That'd be some AI. I'm on the
The
bear's Discord.
procedurally
It's way off.
generated content in the future. Just get
Yeah,
ChatGPT to just
I
start.
can't do that, Savage. I'm very sorry, Savage. I can't let you out, Savage. Right. Yeah, we should start planning for episode 900. Obviously, these things just come so fast, don't they?
Yeah. Not the marching of time towards our inevitable graves or anything like
Ooh,
that.
hold on. This is collectively, Dave. I can't remember when you joined. Sorry, that's not it. I mean,
It's
it's just the
been
truth. I can't remember.
two-ish years ago, I think.
Two and
So
a
you were
half.
around for
Yeah.
700. Do you remember 700?
I am
Uh,
blank in 700.
I think
I
myself
might
and
have been
Scar,
around for it. I don't remember.
we got on board just before 600, I think.
That sounds
Pretty
about
sure.
right.
Yeah. And the old guy over there, the old timer. Do you remember when you joined? Was there a proto party?
Oh, it was a while. I joined up with Ice Cream and Turner.
Oh right, okay. Let's come back into the
Yeah, you gotta go back a
400
while.
era.
Oh, here's one of our predictions for 900.
Oof.
The escalating UFO disclosure scene leads to another revise of Conspiracy X.
Conspiracy X. Bring it on,
Conspiracy
baby!
Great
Yeah.
game. Love
Let's
to
not
see
even
that
wait.
get popular.
Or similar. Someone does a similar system and it comes back that way.
Yeah,
Yeah, I suppose the thing I want to see going forward is a new genre that really gets, it gets the deluxe treatment. I feel like things like sort of transhuman space, eclipse phase, sort of pointed in that direction, but horribly undercooked. They just ended up in Space Dungeon.
Yeah.
I'd really like to see something kind of come along and break the mold. Like, I suppose Fiasco is pretty good for that. Maybe an honest to goodness, proper soap opera role playing system.
Oh, you never heard of Passion de
Te-
la Passion?
Telenova.
Okay, there you go.
Oh,
But I'm thinking more like Brookside or Neighbors. It's something a little more mundane, and there's only so many flashbacks inside flashbacks I can handle. But there should definitely be a mechanism for it.
mhm.
The Coronation Street. Is there a Coronation Street role playing game? Oh my goodness, there probably is.
Somebody has surely made one.
Yeah,
There
I
is
want
the
to
Dallas. There is actually a Dallas role play game.
adapt.
But that's a bit more of a murder mystery, isn't it? Like box board game thing.
I
See,
can
it's
get you
figuring
game
out how to
rules.
make the stakes interesting but low, like
Pretty sure the stakes
engaging but
are-
low. Murder is really easy sort of thing to get people interested in. It's why Shakespeare's such a hack. But like the
Oh,
writers in Coronation Street, no one barely ever gets murdered there, and yet is it still going? Still
Yeah.
going, right?
So is the
Nice.
recording.
Yeah, I know. This is the premium
Oh,
deluxe.
it's your editing it, so sure, why not?
Yeah,
the-
I never edit
like,
this bit. I just slap it up
the-
there.
the- there's been some deaths in Coronation Street. Like,
Yeah, natural causes mostly.
yeah,
It's been there for 40 years.
I mean, it's not like fucking Emmerdale Farm where actors were looking for a pay bump and half the characters got wiped out by a fucking plane crash.
I remember, yeah, that was a good. It was a little, yeah, it wasn't even a very big plane. Yes, the things that go on around making stuff. But hold on, then we can get really meta with it. Now you can do troop play where your players are both the production team for the soap opera, the actors in the soap opera, and the characters in the soap opera.
Hmm.
It's like the
Oh,
Dark Star all over again. I'm a genius. There you go. That's what we
Ars
call
Magica, but it's the magic of television.
it. Yes. Thames Magica. Okay. Man, sometimes I don't know where this comes from. It's just some deep, stagnant well of genius that lies within all of us.
Yeah.
Let's
That's
just
pretty.
take the stupidest idea you've got and systematize it. Okay, right, that's enough. That's it. This is the actual end of this episode. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
See you soon.
See you